Myles Garrett trade rumors. The trade deadline is nearly here. And could Shedeur Sanders actually have more success in this hot garbage of a Browns offense when he plays?
You're coming in hot, dude.
We'll talk about all those things on another episode of our podcast here for Browns Roundtable. It's Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin alongside, looking like he just got off the golf course.
I'm wishing. It's one of those things, Germ. It's one of those things where you just got to manifest it, right? It's windy, cold, rainy all day long. And just watching golf on YouTube just had me in a better place. It's bye week. It's happy times. You are all good. The sun was shining. I'm like, damn, I would rather be there. So I'm in my golfer's fit tonight. There we go.
Well, we're recording this at late at night as well. So the idea that Megs was out playing in the rain up until 10 p.m. at night would just be hilarious to me.
I was dreaming about it.
This nighttime golf. Is it? They have that glow in the dark baseball league that's out there. They have glow in the dark golf. Is that?
They do have glow in the dark golf, and in cool states that aren't BS weather in November, they have golf courses lit up by stadium lights, which I need to get me.
That's kind of cool.
I need to live on one of those golf courses so I can just play golf at all times. Yeah, drop it in the comments. You think you can beat me? Let me know, and we'll.
You can beat me. He's challenging you. He's trying to hustle you like MJ. Win some money on this stuff. Anyway, guys, we appreciate you coming to hang out. Roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns. That's where you can find any of our written content throughout the week. And there's been plenty to talk about, even with the Browns on a bye, of course. You can also like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Follow along with the podcast. Follow along with our post-game commentary, all that good stuff throughout the season and during the offseason. We got you covered, of course. And this week, Megs, I think the natural starting place has to be with the topic that's really dominated the last 2 days, which has just been from this dark corner of the internet or this dark corner of the NFL, rumors of Myles Garrett potentially being traded and what that kind of looks like. And would you give up or would you trade Myles for 3 first-round picks? So I have a very simple reason why the Browns can't trade Myles Garrett, but I want you to take the floor here first and react to, just as you've heard these things unfold or be talked about, where does your sort of mind go first?
Yeah, I mean, at what point? I guess I'm going to answer your request for reaction here with a question. What's the threshold? Where, at what point does a trade for Myles Garrett make a lot of sense? Because, you can't find a bigger Myles Garrett fan than the one sitting right here. I love what he's done. He's been all Browns, in my opinion, throughout his.
Get him to sign your Ryder Cup hat.
Well, once he does get traded, he will get a request. But it's we just watched him have a generational performance. There's been you can count on 2 hands how many people have ever had 5 sacks in one football game, and the Browns lost by 19 points. It really does stink that his, and we'll just talk truthfully, his Hall of Fame career is being wasted in Cleveland, and it sucks. And yes, he did sign that massive contract. This whole, which I don't understand. We've talked about it a couple times on this show. I don't understand the fan reaction to that. He got paid and now he can't care. So there's that element to it. But it just is frustrating. And if the Browns can if it was financially possible, which I don't think that it is, if they can offload him for a couple first round picks, heck yeah. But finding a suitor to give you 2 first rounders or 3 first rounders would be tough. And frankly, it'd be Super Bowl contenders. So those picks aren't even high first rounders anyway. So what are you really trading them for?
Well, the rumor now is that the Eagles are out there offering 3 first rounders or something like that for Myles services. And so on that front, if that's true, I guess ultimately, I guess I get why you'd make that trade if you're getting 3 first rounders, whatever. Yeah. But for me, here's the thing, trading Myles is less about the financial part of this, or not being able to trade Myles is less about the financial part of this, because the financial part is part of the equation. It is an albatross of a contract to move at this point because he signed the extension. But there are ways to work around that, converting money to different things, letting the team that's acquiring him eat some more of it than what you're eating. So they can figure that out where they'd still have to eat some dead cap money because they already guaranteed him some of that. But there's some ways you can manipulate things to make it happen. If you really wanted to or really needed to, you might still just have to eat a pretty hefty cap hit in the end. But it's less about that for me. there's this very simple reason from in my opinion, why the Browns can't trade Myles Garrett. And it's simply that if you trade Myles Garrett at this stage and you're Andrew Berry, it's basically an admission that I, for lack of a better phrase, effed up. Like that. It's basically an admission that you should have traded him back in March, and you didn't do that. Now, again, the argument you could make if they ended up actually getting 3 first-round picks, which I find that hard to believe is actually going to ever be on the table. But if the argument would be you get 3 first-round picks, then I guess your argument could be, well, back then we weren't getting offers for 3 first-round picks. We were only getting offers for 2 first-round picks. So now we actually benefited from doing this because we got an extra first rounder out of it. So, you're wrong, Spencer.
You bought a first-round pick.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be, I guess, like the one argument against my take here. But in the grand scheme of things, the Andrew Berry and this regime, it maybe not in the eyes of Jimmy Haslam. Maybe he is just going to run it back with these guys. We've talked about that plenty. But from everyone else's perspective, like these guys are already on thin ice. They've already made a lot of decisions that have proven costly to this organization, most notably the Deshaun Watson trade. And so if trading Myles now is on the table, and you do it, and you don't get a haul of picks that's more than what you could have gotten back in March, everyone's going to sit there and say, well, why didn't you just do this back then? What was even the point of paying him and then even having to eat any dead cap money and get the same haul that you would have gotten back then and embrace this rebuild concept that you're now starting to embrace? And the other part of this too is Andrew Berry is already right now, he is synonymous with the worst trade in NFL history. That is on his watch. That is on his resume. Whether the Browns want to deflect it as, well, it was a team effort. We all did this together. Okay. But he's the GM. When he goes out in the future, when he's no longer with the Browns and he's looking for other jobs and all that, people are going to ask him, hey, what happened with this Deshaun thing? Why'd you trade for this guy? Why would you do that? And he's going to have to explain himself because he's the GM of the team when it's all said and done. And so if his legacy is already, I came here to Cleveland, or I guess technically he came back to Cleveland because he was here, went to Philly for the 1 year on like a promotion, then came back once they fired John Dorsey. But I came back to Cleveland, and ever since then, I traded away the quarterback that they took number 1 overall that had shown some promise towards being something in this league. I wasted the talent that they accumulated between 16 and 17 when they were just tanking for talent. I wasted Nick Chubb's prime years because he got hurt and then never was the same. I wasted Denzel Ward, and now not only did I waste Myles Garrett, but then I traded away arguably the greatest, if not the second greatest player in franchise history behind Jim Brown. That's your legacy? That's what you're gonna hang your hat on. Hey, I still deserve a job here after all of that transpiring on your watch. Like that's impossible. So this is my way of saying that. Like I think Andrew Berry basically knows I can't trade this guy because it would be the worst look ever. And if you think Browns fans are checked out now, wait until they trade the second best player in franchise history, or the best player in franchise history, and then it's like, what's even at least you lost to the Patriots 32-12. But at least fans that were watching that game on Sunday could be like, hey, I got to see a historic performance from one of the greatest players to ever play this game, even though some people feel bad for him, some people don't. Whatever. Some people think he shouldn't have signed back here anyway. Whatever your stance may be, at least you got that. But, talk about apathy to the max if you trade Myles Garrett. It just can't happen. It can't happen. You nailed it. You nailed it. The whole time you were going. I had time to vet this take.
I was going to say you haven't talked to many people today, so I'm glad I can be this for you. But the whole time you were kind of going there, I just couldn't help myself but thinking how different is this conversation if the Browns are, instead of 2-8, they're 4-4, right? If that kick goes in against Cincinnati, and if they stop the Vikings, and all right, maybe it's not so much different if you trade those 2 wins for the loss to the Packers, which was a miracle in itself. So it's give and take. But if you're 4-4 right now, how different of a conversation are you having? Are you talking about the Browns being buyers? Are you talking about them? How different are we talking? And I just keep going back to that, man. It's we knew, it's funny, Germ, if you would have told us in July when you and I were recording and we were, comparing the Browns to, the best action characters in movie history. What if we're at week 8 at the bye week and this team is 2-6? What's the conversation we're going to be having? We would say, yeah, worst case scenario, you're probably offloading talent, right? And then we finally get here, and you probably could tell that to all of Browns Nation at that point, and everyone's probably like, yeah, that makes sense. But it just feels like right now it's so, I don't know. I'm getting a sense that it's like this year is surprising a lot of people. Like, I don't know what expectations may have been going into this and why, people are deservedly pissed, but like, I don't know what it shouldn't be this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Like we pretty much knew this was coming, right? Like,
yeah, it's a weird place to be in because I do think people were expecting a down year. I think here's the thing though, like I do think a lot of people talk themselves into, myself included, and maybe that was the problem. I'm not even going to say a record. Like, I'm not even going to say like I talked myself into, they'll be like on the fringe of the play. Like, I'm not even saying that. I think people at least talk themselves into, hey, they're getting back to what Stefanski's supposed to do best.
True.
So this offense can't look anywhere near as worse as last year. And I'm here to tell you, it looks worse than last year.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest problem is like, it's how it's looked. It's how 2-6 has looked. Yeah. If they were 2-6, but they were losing like 24-21 or 31-28, I think people would be fine with it. It's the fact that you have an offensive-minded coach whose offense in all but one game has scored 17 points or less. Like, I think that's the problem. Is like,
if we're telling the truth about that one game, there was a pick six and a fumble or an interception that started to drive at the one.
I mean, 2 of the touchdowns basically came from the defense.
Yeah.
Right. So. Like it's a fair point. Like I think that's the thing. Like I keep hearing people bring that up. They're like, I don't know what people expected. Why are they so mad about this? It's like, it's because of how it looks. Yeah. Like it wasn't supposed to look worse than last year, and it looks worse than last year. That was my argument in the entire preseason. Was like, I think this offense will be more competent with Joe Flacco and getting back to Stefanski's basics. And it's not just this offense catered to Deshaun Watson. I fell for it, and I guess I was an idiot for that. But I think what the biggest problem is with like why 2-6 is so disappointing to people, because it hasn't looked like what 2-6 is like, what the 2-6 that they thought they might get. And I can understand where fans are coming from that regard. Yeah. And I also think too, I think I've talked about this with you, but you're right. There are places this season where the Browns win here, they lose here in the margins. My biggest argument with that is, I think you can look around this league and find every week at least a dozen teams that win or lose in the margins. And to me, that's the mark of a good football team or a bad football team. The good football teams in those moments, they find ways to win. Bad football teams, they find ways to lose. The Browns are in the latter because they're losing in those moments. So you're right, like a missed kick here, a drop pass there. Those things certainly change the outcomes of games, but that's why the Browns are a bad football team. And we can see that tangibly in front of us week after week.
There's no doubt. And the one stat I heard over the weekend, I think it was from part of my take, they were the Jets. And if you were to flip, they do that at about this time every year. The tweet comes out about if every one-score game was flipped, and the Jets, who are 1-7, would be 6-2 if one-score games are flipped. So it like goes right to your exact point. Like, good teams find a way to win those games. Bad teams find a way to lose those games. And the Browns obviously are in that bad team category, man. It just is like, and also too, I think the reality of it, like, Browns fans in 20 years, this is our 5th rebuild that we're, starting. Right. So it's like the franchise has been back since 2000 and you're, in my lifetime, it's the 3rd rebuild in my lifetime. Right. Like, it's like,
well, I mean, but it's also though, like, it's a rebuild off of what was supposed to be like the golden era of Browns football.
Which was the goal, and
it's a rebuild after they tanked for all that talent, and they got all the talent, and then nobody expected them to be tanking again so quick. Not tanking, but nobody expected them to be rebuilding again so quickly when they had all that talent in house. Like they thought they were getting more than 2 playoff appearances and 1 playoff win from that, and that's I think what's frustrating.
It's funny, man. The room I want to be in. the room I wish I was a fly on the wall in. Maybe one day I get to ask somebody or some higher power what the conversation was between Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen, or Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson, or Baker Mayfield and whatever in that 2018 draft, because the Browns are such the perfect case study in, if you don't have a quarterback, none of the other stuff matters, right? And you had an elite roster for all those years, man, and we're just back to where everybody knows. Like, we don't know. Yeah. Browns fans don't know winning. Browns fans know this. And I think as we're chatting about it right now in the bye week with no opponent on the calendar for this weekend, it's like, man, how are we back to this exact same spot that we were in 2016 and 2017 and the years before that, 2012 and 11 and 9 and 8, and like, man, like, just for 1 year, for a couple years, can we be the Patriots who have a 3-year rebuild, get the quarterback, have a tough year, and now he looks like an MVP, and it's like, yeah, that's the freaking way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, in an ideal world, for sure. Well, we sort of got away from the trade deadline conversation, but I think we surmised. No, I mean, I don't mind that. I think the conversation.
No, I'm saying you and I just went off on therapy.
Because what I wanted to get back to was obviously the big conversation leading into next week is, are the Browns going to make any trades? And I even said on the post-game show this past weekend that I wouldn't be surprised if they did try to be buyers. Now, I haven't heard that they're trying to be active on that market to like trade for a wide receiver or something like that. But what I will say is I think the Tyson Campbell, Greg Newsome trade sort of set the stage for, or like gives you like a roadmap for the way the Browns are going to think about the trade deadline, where it's like, I don't think nothing they've done to this point, including not wanting to trade Myles Garrett and re-signing him, tells us that they are just fully going fire sale. Let's go. I mean, they are trying to stockpile picks, but they're trying to do it in a smart way. And like the Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell trade made a lot of sense because it was basically them saying, Greg Newsome, not part of our future. Yeah. Tyson Campbell, cheaper deal than what we're going to have to pay Greg Newsome, part of our future. Let's get him in now. Let's fill that void that we're sort of creating at the same time. And let's just, take care. Let's kill two birds with one stone, if you will. And I think that's kind of the approach they're going to take next week. Maybe they don't trade anybody. Maybe they do trade a few pieces. Obviously, any of those guys that are on like last year of their deal are, I think, viable conversations or it's a viable thought for people to have. Like David Njoku, I think he tops the list. Any of those linemen that are on the last year of their deals, I think those guys are near the top of the list. There's certainly reason to believe any of those guys could be traded because they're on the last year of their deal and they might not be here next year. But I do think it's not just necessarily going to be like, hey, let's trade David Njoku and get like this pick. It could be, let's trade David Njoku, package it with like a day 3 pick, and try to get like a player back in return of some capacity. Because I think this team knows they have a lot of needs to fill, and I don't know that they can fill them all just in one off season or one draft necessarily either.
Yeah, it could be Njoku. A name that is floating around in other circles is Denzel Ward. Like, could you do a good player for the Browns for another good player for somebody? I think if anyone's going to break the mold this year, and kind of more so to your point, if anyone's breaking the mold this year, it's the Browns. It's going to be player for player. Can we get left tackles? Can we get offensive line depth? Can we get a playmaker on the outside that, as you look at next year's draft, I think this past draft is a good example that if you do hit on your first 3 or 4 picks, it looks pretty damn good, right? Where you can get a game changer like Carson Schlesinger, and you can solidify your offensive line. But to do that, you have to also have other pieces there. And the Browns are looking at a full fire sale on the offensive line. They're looking at a full fire sale at the wide receiver position. It's like, how can you kind of buttress that stuff, at this deadline right now? You like that word?
What a word.
Come on, dude. Yes, sir.
That's a John Carroll education. Hard work right there.
Both of us, man. Look at us Blue Streaks making it happen.
I'm not the one who used the word buttress, though.
Making it happen in the real world. Yeah, there we go. No, but how can you do that with your pieces you have now? How can you add that talent? It has to be top of mind, because the draft is 50-50, right? If you can add a guy who Tyson Campbell can prove that he can play at least a little bit, get him on a decent deal, you can feel comfort in having a guy in your program already before going into a draft.
Yeah, I think as I think about the deadline next week, I think I would say I would be surprised if they do nothing,
Yeah.
but I would also be surprised if they go like overboard.
Mhm.
Because like I get that there's, they're not afraid to eat dead cap, but they also have to be mindful. They can't take on so much dead cap. Like, you know what I mean? Like
At what point
they
do we
can't
have
trade
to
like
say?
5 guys who have like $20 million in dead cap and then like eat all that at once. Like it's just not going to happen. It's kind of impossible in a lot of ways. So like they have to be mindful of that to a degree. Somebody
Well,
like the reason Njoku makes the most sense is because you already have the future at that position in house. You have
yeah.
Harold Fannin Jr. I think the same thing can be said for like if you're looking at the offensive line, what's the position group that they're lacking the most going into next year? Probably guard. Joel Bitonio is probably going to retire. Wyatt Teller's in the last year of his deal. Zach Zinter's the guy they drafted to quote unquote be the future. He's inactive every game except one to this point. So like, what does that tell you? I don't know that trading a guard makes a lot of sense, but maybe you trade Ethan Posick because you have Luke Whippler there and you feel like, okay, we can at least hold that position down. So I think that's the thought process they have to kind of have here because they can't create even deeper holes for themselves and just think that like they're going to fix it all with draft picks and whatever. So that's kind of my thought process. I'd be surprised if they do nothing. I'd be surprised if they go like overboard and just like sell off everything. Because to this point, they haven't signaled that they're doing like the whole tank thing. I just don't think that's their thought process.
Do you think there will be, we talked about the apathy coming after a potential Myles Garrett trade. Do you think that there will be some of that if they trade Njoku? Because like Njoku's been, since the 2018 draft when he came in he was 2017 with Myles and Jabril. They were the 3 first-round pick. Man, 3 first-round picks in that draft, and it was Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers, and David Njoku. Do you think that there's a level of apathy that sets in if that happens, or do people have easier time swallowing it because of Harold Fannin?
I think that, yeah. I think that exactly. I think any of these positions that you have young guys who are up and coming and sort of filling those holes or those roles, people are very, very excited about. Nick Chubb not being here stinks. People loved him. But if you've watched Nick Chubb, you realize like he doesn't look like the same guy. And there's reason to be really excited about Quinshon Judkins. Harold Fannin, same thing. Like if you lose David Njoku, hey, it's just business, man. We got a future guy who looks really good and versatile for us. Like I don't think it has to be the end of the world. So we'll see what happens. That's kind of where my thought process is with it. But certainly fast approaching here that the Browns will have some decisions to make leading up to the bye week kind of came at the perfect time for this team.
Perfect time.
Like they really need to regroup at 2-6. Kevin's needs to consider like giving up play calling potentially, quarterback potential change, which isn't probably going to happen. And then on top of this, like the trade, like leading into the trade deadline, like you can really get a lay of the land of what you want to do with your roster. So I think it's probably a good spot for them to be on the bye week this week.
But before we get off the trade topic, I saw I saw a post today on Twitter that just like really was just such a bummer. It was like the guy tweeted when my Browns fandom died, and it was when Nick Chubb was getting carted off the field in Pittsburgh, and you're like, man,
yeah.
You're just like, man, like that was
on a team that had Deshaun Watson on it. He was like,
it would have been.
Nick Chubb was the reason to like
that was
people bought like, oh yeah, I like Nick Chubb's still here. I love that guy. And then once he was gone, it made everybody have to realize that a lot of people just don't really like Deshaun Watson. So
and like I remember like that's one of those moments where it's like, I asked my dad about where he was with the fumble or the drive, and like certainly my memories of if I have kids one day asking me what I remember about the Browns growing up aren't going to be positive, but I'll remember the day Nick Chubb got hurt. Like that's going to be my drive. That's my fumble, right? Where it's like, exactly where you're at. And it kind of signaled like the end of that, like the end of that group, and Myles and David are still kind of hanging around.
That's
but
like that,
like that was like, oh, his leg just snapped.
This era's over. Yeah.
Yeah. His leg is in 2 different directions on the field right now. This is all, it's over. It's over, boys.
I think that's actually a really good way to like describe that moment. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. But I think you're right. I mentioned Kevin Stefaski even at the play calling. We got a quarterback conversation to have off of this too. But Megs, do you think Kevin should vacate play calling and pass it off to Tommy Rees the rest of the season or whatever and sort of take on that CEO role? how do you feel about that? Because Kevin said after the game on Sunday, we're going to evaluate everything. And then he sort of backtracked and said, no, we're going to keep Dylan as the quarterback, but I'm still going to evaluate everything else. And then I actually asked him, does that include play calling? And he just kind of gave the same answer, like, yeah, we just got to look at everything. So wasn't really, it seems like he's at least contemplating it. Do you think it's the move he should make?
Well, I mean, it's twice now in his tenure where he's had to give it up. And then at that point, you're asking, like, all right, dude, what do you do? Like, I'm a big Kevin.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm a big Kevin fan, but now this is twice now where you've given up play calling. And what are you here for then? Like, what have you done for me lately? It's not been good on offense. You're proving that, you can't adjust. A guy we were talking about before we started recording, Jake Burns, does a lot of great stuff. I'm sure if you're here on our show, you've crossed his path, but like they can't adjust mid-game. They do not use formations to their advantage. They do not use personnel packages to their advantage. And like that was when the Browns were rolling. Like that's what they were doing. They were getting into heavy personnel and being able to throw out of it. They were getting into light personnel and being able to run out of it. He doesn't do that anymore, and it's so bland, it's so stale, and it's frustrating. It's like, yeah, if you're Tommy Rees, you're like, hey, dude, hang on to this play calling because I don't have much to work with. Like, you're like, hey, I'm going to go out and struggle because I have a bad offensive line and a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I that's a long way of saying I don't know. And if he gives it up, it brings a much bigger question mark into my mind on Kevin.
I think the reason I'm open to it is because, and I talked about this with you before we recorded here, I don't know like where Kevin Stefaski kind of lost his way with the offense, but like the things that made the offense great when he first got here, the things that he was hired for, a lot of that outside zone conceptual stuff, that's all like gone. Like it's good. He's used less and less of that as his years in Cleveland have gone on. And it's just not the offense that we're used to. And in a year where everyone talked about, Joe Bitonio said he came back largely because he knew they were getting back to what they think was a strong point for them in those types of concepts and how they execute those. Like if it gets to a point where you now got to give a play calling, I think you're right. Like what do you do? Like what's your main purpose here? But also I just think you kind of got to see something else because maybe Tommy Rees brings a different perspective that you're missing. And it's the only other card you can play if you're trying to turn things around for an offense that week after week, he comes to the podium and says, we just got to be better. We just got to be better. We just got to be better, which I've told you a million times. To me says he knows that there's no quick fix for this. Like he knows that it's just like, we don't have the right players. We just have to play better football. And so because of that, like, I think it's the only other thing you can do unless you change quarterbacks again to try to like ignite a spark in your offense and try something different. What's interesting about it too is like, I'm just kind of, I've gone this whole season just assuming that Tommy Rees has like a guaranteed job in college at the end of the season. I think like he was up for that UNC job before they leaned into the Belichick thing. And
oh my God,
every time every time a new team fires their coach, I feel like Tommy Rees is in like the top 10 of like, hey, odds to be this team's coach. So I'm just kind of assuming that's going to happen. He's like the hot candidate right now in the NFL, but yeah, I don't know. I think it might make sense to just like do it if you're trying to do something different than you've done the previous 8 weeks and get a different look on things and perspective on things. But maybe
Kevin's going to give up play calling, and Tommy's like, he's going to call in sick on Sunday. I got a cold, dude. Like, I can't be there.
Hey, I'm interviewing at Penn State today. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm in State College, coach. I can't be at the game against the Jets. You know what kept me up on Sunday night outside of the fact that the Browns got thumped, was the Jets scoring 39 points on the Bengals and the Browns only scoring 16 points on that same Bengals group. And you're like, everyone's kind of, me included, kind of like circled that one coming up after the bye week as like a win. And you're like, if they get beat, I mean, Berea is going to go up in flames, dude. Like that is going to be, that's going to be a tough Monday if next Sunday doesn't go as planned.
Yeah, I've said it already, but that game against the Jets is
win, dude.
It's like the Dolphins game a couple weeks
Same
ago.
as the Dolphins was a must-win.
It's another game where it's like, okay, what's the state of your team? Are you sticking together? And by the way, I kept bringing this up. That's the Browns. The Browns off of a bye week under Kevin Stefaski have generally had a good record.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to pull this up real quick.
So as you're pulling it up here, the Browns.
Kevin Stefanski is. Hold on. Go ahead. Go ahead with what you're going to say.
I was going to say after the bye week, they go Jets, Ravens, Raiders, 49ers, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals. Okay. So even in those, the Ravens are getting busy right as we record this. They're getting busy on the Dolphins right now. They're up 21-6. That's with Lamar. So Lamar will be back 2 more weeks. But winnable games there are Jets, Raiders, Titans. And then that's 3. And then you could probably put, I would hate to put the 49ers as 1, but if Mac Jones is still the quarterback, maybe. And maybe the Bears. So you're looking at 4 or 5 games there that
I can't find it. I can't find it. But my main point is Stefanski's generally had a pretty good record off of buys.
Yeah.
But I forgot that the Jets are also on a bye.
Yeah, so they're both coming off buys.
So, they both have the extra week to prepare. Does that cancel it out? I don't know. So that's the other thing that's interesting here is, Jets are riding high going into the bye. You're at, a low point because you just saw your best player put together a career performance and you wasted it.
Yeah.
How do the two teams respond? I'm with you, man. All those same narratives we had 2 weeks ago, just brush them off, take them off the shelf. It all comes back to the surface.
They didn't even make it to the shelf. They're on the desk. They're on everyone's desk right next to them. They didn't even make it back.
But that's why I do think that game is a big one for Stefanski. And why this decision of maybe giving up the play calling is going to be an important one. So we'll see if he actually does go through with that. The other thing I was going to say, because I talked about it, the only other big change you can make for the offense is change quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Kevin said after the Patriots game, he's not doing that. He's going to stick with Gabriel. He said, you got to understand there's ups and downs with a quarterback, a young quarterback especially, blah, blah, blah. I've been on the record numerous places saying I can accept the idea that, okay, young quarterback, you want to give him a longer leash. You can't judge him off of 4 games. It's a very small sample size. And I'll say this, as somebody who likes Shedeur better or more, if it was Shedeur and he was struggling through 4 weeks, I'd say the same thing. I'd be like, yeah, I want my guy to have more, the guy that I like, I want to see him have more time. It's not really fair to judge him off of 4 games. So if I'm going to say that about Shedeur, I got to be able to say it about Dylan. But I actually wonder if, for at least one reason, Shedeur would have more success with this offense simply because there's a lot of chaos with this group right now. Offensive line can't block. Receivers are dropping passes left and right. And I almost wonder, go back and watch the Colorado tape of Shedeur Sanders. Now, part of the problems with that team, I think, led to his bad habits, like the drifting in the pocket thing. He didn't have a very good offensive line. But he also proved that he can be a very productive player under less than ideal circumstances. And so I almost wonder if, he's almost made for that and maybe can get a little bit more out of this offense than Dylan Gabriel can. It sounds like the change isn't coming after the bye, but I do think it's coming sooner rather than later. And that's why I think that game matters a ton for Dylan. If he's going to keep the job going into late November, early December, if he struggles again, I think all bets are off for when Shedeur gets that job. But the thing that I keep going back to is maybe he would have more success in this offense that is obviously super messed up right now and doesn't have a lot to rely on. And maybe that's enough to, at some point, you're going to have to turn it over to him and see what he can do and if he can provide that spark. So maybe those are the 2 cards that Kevin Stefanski has up his sleeve. Give up the play calling and start Shedeur Sanders at some point, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that you make a unbelievably valid point there. That certainly could impact the Browns in a very positive way, which I think would be good, man. But I think, next Sunday in Cleveland, you get the Jets coming into town.
No, it's on the road.
It's on the road. You're going, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be there. But it's super. Regardless,
back to New York, I go.
Very, very important day because if he doesn't look the part, man, you gotta. The leash is running thin, and that's the part that I think is frustrating to me. I didn't play NFL quarterback, but I played the position, and they've really set up Dylan to fail in multiple ways here. Like, undermined him on the night he got drafted. Two rounds later, you draft the biggest personality in the draft in the 5th round. Like, and then you roll him out there in London, off of, you're going to London for your first start. And it's like, there's a lot of ways you look at this. And I watched the games. I watched the tape. I scroll the same Twitter spaces that everyone watching this does too. Like, I see it. He's not playing good football, and there's a lot to not like about him, but this is the same group of fans and the same franchise that's getting, crapped on every single week because they didn't give Baker Mayfield 6 years to develop, right? And you're going to cut a kid off after 4 games. I don't know. I go both ways on it, but I am excited. I am excited to see Shedeur Sanders when we do get the chance to see it, because at the very least, it can provide some excitement to this team that is lacking that in a major way.
And I do think that's going to happen at some point. Obviously,
it has to. It has to.
Yeah, they have to get some sense of who he is. Listen, I what I think is interesting with Dylan too, and why this game's going to matter. The one thing he could hang his hat on early on in his starts was he wasn't turning the ball over the same way Flacco was, and that's huge. Like, when you're not turning the ball over, giving up extra possessions, all those things, that's a good place to be for an offense, and I can see why that would be a positive overall for Stefaski to make that change. But when that goes away, like we saw in New England, what's the value?
You bring nothing to the table then.
Yeah. So if that continues in New York, I think absolutely, like, all bets are off. Here, before we get out of here, what is your prediction for when Shedeur Sanders is going to make his first start?
It's funny.
Give me a game.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking when we started it, my prediction was that we were just going to get off Joe Flacco. Like, my August prediction was that Joe Flacco just stopped playing for the Cleveland Browns. So I'm looking now. If it doesn't go well, it's probably a trip out to Las Vegas with Shedeur Sanders being the starting quarterback.
Can I be honest? It's going to be that game. You want to know why?
I don't know why.
Because that's the game I'm not going to.
There's
only so much money in the budget for travel, and I was like, I don't know if I can swing a Vegas trip. So
German and I are going to look like Dumb and Dumber when they were on the bike, and they froze his hands. That's going to be me and you on a moped from Cleveland to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I told you. Like I said, it's going to happen. It's going to happen because they're going to be like, Spencer's not going to Vegas, so screw it. Let's start him.
Dude, Shedeur starting in Vegas would kind of be cool. That would be
Plus, are you going to start him against the 49ers 1 week later? Like, that's a terrible matchup to start him against. I mean, I guess actually, I take that back. They started Dylan Gabriel in London, so they'll start anybody against anybody.
I would also say the 49ers, like blind resume, like, take away their logo, they're going to look, they're 5-3 right now, but they're beat to hell right now. They have so much injuries. A really actually good one, a good spot would be against the Titans, like, because you go Titans, Bears.
Yeah, hey,
you go Bills,
Cam Ward
versus Shedeur Sanders, the 1 versus 2.
Put that game on Thursday Night Football right there.
Wow, TNF.
I'd actually watch that one because I don't watch a lot of Thursday Night Football. My life, there's other things that happen in my life. I can't constantly be watching football.
Last question: are you excited to go back to New York? New York twice in 1 month. Are we excited?
Am I excited? Well, first
this is World Traveler for all our Cleveland fans.
First of all, MetLife is like one of the worst stadiums. This is not anything like blasphemous. This is not a hot take. If anybody in New York tries to like pull this and says like, oh, who's this guy in Cleveland talking crap about us? No, MetLife sucks too. Let's just call a spade here. This is not a Cleveland thing or like a little brother thing. This is 100% MetLife sucks because everybody knows MetLife sucks. That stadium is just like boring as hell. And I don't know. I mean, you know how I feel about New York. There's certain things about New York that I find very cool and like historic. Madison Square Garden being one of them, which is why it was awesome to cover a game there. But as a city, it's too many. Like I like city life, but it's too many people. It's too much traffic. It's too many rats that I walk past on the street. There's too many foreign smells for me. It's gluttonous. It's gluttonous on a level that I don't enjoy. And so from that standpoint, I could, there's a reason why I'm flying in at like 4:00 on Saturday afternoon and then like leaving at like 7 a.m. on Monday morning. I'm like, I don't need to be in this town any longer than I have to be here.
It ain't Boston. It ain't no Boston, German.
It ain't Boston. Boston, you can walk the entire city in like 30 minutes. It's the best.
Boston German, baby. That's Boston German, everybody.
I do love Boston. Not all Boston teams. There's only one team. It's this one behind me that I cheer for. That's the only one from Boston, to be clear. But
so good.
I do love me some Boston. It's a good town. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Again, head on over to roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns to check out any of our latest written content over there at the website, and also join the channel. Be part of the conversation. We got our live game threads each week and all those things. Maybe we'll do a live non-game.
You guys, yeah.
Maybe we'll do a live non-game thread on Sunday. We'll just do like, hey, what games you watching during the bye week?
like a red zone game thread. Like, oh my gosh, the Aaron Rodgers just threw anher touchdown. Like that.
Oh man, this is what good offense looks like. Who knew? Yeah, we can do something like that.
Wow, this is what a fun Sunday.
But
or we do a submit your apple picking, since everybody will be doing like fall things on Sunday. Submit your picks in. Submit your fall activity.
That's your wife or girlfriend dragged you to. But also we encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. We have content like this, hopefully, more funny stuff like our conversations that Megs and I have. And of course the more serious stuff, the post-game commentary, the press conferences and all that throughout the season and during the off season. So please join us in whatever method you find most suitable. But thank you for jumping in with us. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And as always, I encourage you and implore you to keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with Cleveland Browns Roundtable.